All right, can you start your recording now?
Yeah, I may cancel it out. Okay, I'm good.
All right. And don't forget to go live on YouTube.
Yeah, already
There you
did.
go. Perfect.
And go ahead and start the recording. The first of the CoreSELF Human Rights 1.0. One of the themes for the World Unity Week is around the sustainability of our planet. Another is about basic human rights. And when I heard about this theme within World Unity Week, I thought to myself that the core selfie that I've been working with now for the last 25 years in terms of how does an individual know who they really are, who they've been created to be, really is at the baseline, the starting point, the alpha of human rights. And so today I am so honored to be here with you. My name is Peter J. Redding. I am a professional coach. I'm a professional coach trainer. And the guest that I have that's going to be talking a little bit more about the very first aspect of these 6 principles that we're going to be talking about this week is Alana Brown. And I am thrilled and excited to have you here with us, Alana. So welcome to World Unity Week and talking about the most basic, in my mind, of human rights.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm thrilled as well. And I think that's a great way to put it, basic. I feel like all the rest just flow from that one. So I agree.
Beautiful. So let me just read out the Human Rights 1.1 is to reconnect. I have the right to know and pursue the belief that I am a sacred, unique, and life-affirming human being. As you hear that, Alana, articulated that way as a human right, I know that you and I have been involved with coaching and coach training and providing coaching to other individuals in the world. But as you hear it framed as a human right that your client and that you personally have a right to actually have a belief and know that you are sacred, unique, and a life-affirming human being. How does that hit you?
So when there's just moments where I just feel it, like there's this internal reaction of resonance, I think is the word for it. As I hear about human rights, I also think about just as a birthright. Like this is this is just something that's natural to me. And I feel like that really is the again, maybe the bedrock or the foundation of the rest of the work, the rest of the human rights that will be explored, is reconnecting with that sense of self, and of who I truly am. So yeah, just deep resonance.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, the interesting thing in terms of this one is that there is, in my experience, that most people, when they talk about themselves, they hear that and say that through a prism or prison
Mhm.
of how other people have defined you. Okay, so maybe it's your gender. I mean, the obvious things that they see you. Okay, so obviously you're a female. I'm a
Yeah.
male. I'm a Caucasian. You are whatever you are, and all of the external things that have been part of the culture,
Right.
who I was born as. So the things from the external that I say, but
Mhm.
also then the sense of what other people have said. Okay, so because you are of this age, or because you are of this culture, or because you are of this color, or because you are of this, okay. We've had some major reverb going on here. And I'm not sure how to get around it. Oh, I'm still getting it. Oh, crumb.
Peter, you might want to check your YouTube because it must be playing, or it's maybe.
Okay. Okay, let's see if I can't stop that.
Would you like me to continue?
Yes, please. Show up. Here's who you need to be feel safe. Here's
Mhm.
who you need to be or what you need to do, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So can you tell the audience or share with the audience your experience in terms of all of those external conditionings, programmings, etc., that has partially or wholly defined your life to a certain age,
Mhm. Yeah.
vis-a-vis finding out who you are deep down inside that your creator made you to be?
Mm. I I just go back to maybe early 20s, late teens, and starting to recognize that these imposed um, cultural identities, social identities, aspects of it weren't aligning. I could feel something. It was one of those things I don't know what I'm feeling, but I think I have a different thought about this. And so I remember that very distinctly. And so it brought me to this point of what we're ultimately talking about, reconnecting. And so there's something clearly very brewing within me, where I got to that point of even being able to say or think, I think something's different here.
Wow.
And so I am so grateful to myself, and just the combination of things that didn't allow me to stay entangled for any longer than I already had been. And I just remember just getting so deep into different forms of spirituality in some sense, but it was really me following this intuitive calling back to this this human right. And then it was again that feeling of resonance. And I remember I'd be reading something or hearing something, and there'd just be tears. And it's one of those things, it just feels true in a way that those former things didn't. And I remember just kind of feeling like, oh, okay, now it clicks. This is why it wasn't resonating before, because this is my truth. And so coming back to this previous lens, I just remember kind of being like, that doesn't really make much sense to me. And so it was always something, but I feel like it was um, something that I gave myself time to ease into, because a lots of times, whether that's because I'm a woman, I'm a Black woman, however else, whatever else I may be identifying, it feels almost like I'm not supposed to question this. And so I remember a bit of that coming up.
Wow. Well, I love the way you articulate that. There's so like an inside barometer, inside guidance that's going. I hear what you say about me or what I need to do or who I should be, but it's not resonating. It's I'm not sure that's true for me. And to go that deeper reflection. Then okay, so if I'm not that, or I'm not aligned with whatever they're saying or asking or demanding or suggesting, then who am I? And so that leads us to, CoreSELF. That's the concept of CoreSELF and the process of CoreSELF that I know that you've gone through now a couple of different ways with me. Partly through the coach's training and partly through the CoreSELF, CoreSELFie, which is a short version of, but very powerful version of identifying with that sense of core self, that my original, some people call that the original self, right? So how did that help either sharpen the lens or help you to go through that process, which I hear you started doing in your late teens, early 20s, right? God bless you, girl, because it took me until my late 30s to start figuring this stuff out. So way ahead of me.
Yeah.
But how or did it even help sharpen the yes, this is me, or no, this isn't meant for me?
It certainly sharpened it. It brought this, what I feel is just that, it brought this articulation where it's an alignment tool that reminds me of who I am. And lots of times it's this sense, again, like I feel something, but I don't maybe have the words for it. And so it certainly was this moment of looking at the words on the page, and some of it was again to like, I've been feeling it, now this is the word for it. And some of it was like, oh, okay, I hadn't thought about it that way. And so it was very much a powerful moment of having a very visual reminder for myself of who I've actually been the whole time.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautifully said. And the follow-up question on that is, so what? what difference has it made, if any?
Right. That's fair question. I think the so what is I just, it's been my experience that there can be those moments where it can feel quite topsy-turvy and going through variety, contrast, whatever that might be. And it's kind of like, it can be that momentary fog. And so having this now articulated for me, there's something I can anchor to, I can grab onto and be like, oh yeah. And so I feel that it's helped me in that way. And of course it takes some maybe building the muscle to remember, hey, I took some time to articulate this whenever that might have been, but it brings me back, and so it helps me in that way.
Thank you. Yeah, I often call that what you talk about, the topsy-turvy or the forgetting, is welcome to the human experience.
Right.
Because I forget who I am and who I was created to be. And so I hear that a lot from our clients and my personal coaching clients. I'm sure you do as well, yours, to remind them that I don't necessarily say, yeah, this is, wait a minute, this is your human right to be yourself. Right. But that's the way it sort of comes out of, oh yeah, that's I remember now, because I've got hit upside the head by life, and then I'm in a reactionary mode.
Yeah.
And this allows me to go back, whoop. It's like the pilot's, beam of light or beam that they're kind of going towards Boston. Yeah. And now it's sort of towards Chicago. That's the wrong way. We're going to Boston today. So. So I know that you are also a professional coach, a professional certified coach. Have you used this methodology and supported your clients to know and articulate with the CoreSELF technology
Mhm.
who they are? And I know you have. So, okay, so that's a redundant question.
It's all right.
I guess a better question is, what difference has it made for them?
Yes, yes, absolutely have. And so um, the difference it makes for them, I believe it really inspires my client, just as it did for me, to remember who they are. It's like discovering themselves anew. But I really internally, I believe it's this remembering. And so I've had so many great responses to it, from tears, smiling, just really wonderful responses that are really, really heartwarming. And it's this the core selfie is such a beautiful complement to the coaching work, the inner work that's happening in coaching. On its own, the tool is amazing, and then to pack a double punch, and it's extra impactful to do it within coaching. It's just, I find it extra meaningful, and so again, yes, it's a reminder for my client, and it also sparks great coaching conversation after that, as they really start to be with the words, think about them, and it really provides this um, guiding light. As you're talking about, it's this beam of light, and it's like, okay, I have something to align to. Which way is north for me? And I've had clients come back and tell me that to the best of their ability, they tried to remember it so they could do it with a loved one, whether partner, friend, child. And I think that's really sweet. And I've also had um, um, I've also noticed that even if they maybe don't directly share the tool with somebody else, there's still that ripple effect that happens, because it's just natural that something's going to happen as a result of them now knowing the awareness for themselves. And final thought comes to mind, fun fact. Also, I had a client message me between sessions, and she told me, she's like, this weekend, I got a tattoo of my life purpose statement. And I was just so shocked. And I was like, that's one of the best messages I've ever gotten. And so I would say that just shows how impactful it was and how deeply it resonated, that she was like, I want to get this tattooed. So that's been the impact for my clients.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's like the inner core self, if it's on the back of my hand or something, oh yeah, that's
Right. Oh yeah.
that and that's a major commitment. So
Yes.
one of the questions I always get from people that I talk to about this is, does that change? Does that inner core sense of self, and I use the big S, self,
Yeah.
does it change over time? Because my life is different in my 20s than it is in my 30s, than it is in my 40s. And there's different stages of life that I or my clients go through. So what's your thoughts in terms of that core self articulation when it happens at whatever age you're happen to be in? Does it fundamentally shift? Does it change?
Maybe the key is the fundamental part. It's not fundamentally, like I feel like there's this foundation. And then if anything, the word expand or expansion comes to mind, where maybe it becomes more. And so I have found since first doing it with youth in the coach training until now, maybe there's new words that I've rotated in as I've expanded my learning, but it's still actually talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I do see the point to maybe seasons of life, it may shift, but I would say it's still the same core, has been my experience.
Mine too. Mine for 25 years. I mean, I've had clients and students that go back 20 years, and they'll occasionally run into me, or what's up me or whatever, and say, it's, you know what, Peter, it's still exactly the same thing. It's just fundamentally the same.
Yeah.
I guess the last question would be, it's a leading question, and I don't necessarily mean it to be that way, and then it's another way I do. So just the do you and your clients become a better human being? And I'm talking about without even thinking necessarily about the specifics of what's articulated on a page
Mhm.
in the core self process. Are they more compassionate? Are they more accepting? Are they more loving? Are they more available? Are they more alive? I mean, all the things that we think about in terms of the vitality of life. And we cycle all the way back to sort of the early definition that we talked about of I can have the belief that I am an awesome human being. I am a life affirming being. I have the right to know that and to believe that about myself.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts about that?
I would say it's one of the word natural comes to me again. It happens very naturally. So I think that I would say that progression into embodying more of that, maybe in demonstrating more of that um, within life happens very naturally. And so um, I find that oftentimes my clients, without them realizing it in a session, they're very much either describing or speaking to elements of what's in their articulation of their core selfie. And so I would say that really speaks to it's just naturally becoming infused. And I also think that I think about this idea of just like raising the level of awareness and in a person. And so once I've raised that awareness, there's going to be a natural shift that happens. And I would say it's hard not to. It almost nudges a person to match that. And if I don't, I'm going to feel that gap, if you will. And so I whether I'm doing it in the moment all the time, give myself grace for that, but there's always this knowing that that's who I know I can be right now, maybe just in more of moments. So it naturally, yes, I do feel like a better person, if you will, because I have reconnected to that. I've shined a light on it, and now it's um, going to flow forth in ways that I couldn't possibly predict. So I would say it's hard not to. I think you'd have to really try and dig in to not make it happen, because it's just gonna.
Yeah, it'd be unnatural not to be myself now.
Right.
And I love some of the verbiage that you use is that it doesn't even feel right. It's like even if it's not clearly articulated in my brain or my thought process right now, it's like I'm off kilter, I'm off center, I'm not, our words, not being my core self.
Yeah.
But there becomes, with a higher level of awareness and practice. So that's the other piece that I personally have found, that the more that I do, or my clients or my students get in touch with, oh yeah, back to true north, your words. This feels right. It may not make sense to anybody else, but it doesn't need to. It's okay. And then when I veer off of it, it's like things are getting shaky again. And okay, so let's come back to yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I love that, the practice piece. Yes, the awareness is very important, and then it's about like what do I do? How do I be with that now that I know? And so again, it's just like building a muscle where okay, it can look like this. A practice that I have as a coach, I've made it a regular thing where after sessions I will take time to acknowledge which ways did I express the words on my core selfie. And so what that's actually done is helped me recognize the different ways that I can express a certain strength. It's the same strength I'm talking about, but I'm noticing, okay, it showed up this way this time and this way. And so that is building that practice piece where I can recognize it more. Therefore, I'd say really fan the flames of it. And so it all goes together, the awareness and then the practice of it.
Fantastic. Yeah. So what you focus on expands. What I practice at, I get better at. What I repeat, especially for a new habit or a new way of thinking, it's like, oh yeah, okay. So yeah, and my experience, same thing. It gets easier, and I'm human, so I still forget. And I give myself permission to forgetting, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're a perfectly imperfect human. Thank you very much, Peter.
Yeah, the forgetting, I would say that's the um well, actually, as I just meant to go speak the words, that's one of the most important pieces too, is the self-compassion, even in my forgetting, and not letting it feel like everything's negated or what have you, like still here, extend compassion, even in my forgetting or foggy moments. That's important, or I've realized for me, very important.
So beautiful, so beautiful.
Thank you.
Any last thoughts in terms of, again, coming full circle to basic human right? Basic human right to be one's true self, core self, original self. I don't care which way you call that, but any last words or thoughts of, yeah, this is the foundation for not being willing to be abused, not being willing to be discounted, not being willing to anything or everything that millions, maybe billions of people are having to put up with.
The thought that comes to me is that I really feel that there's such a readiness to accept these human rights, birthrights, more than ever before. And so I love that this is a conversation that's happening, and where I really believe that more people are feeling that call. And now there can be conversations like this, there can be tools like this that can support them in whatever that next step might be, that confirmation. Again, as I spoke earlier, it very much can be this intuitive sense, which by nature of it, it's quite intangible in that way. So doing this work can be really helpful to provide that evidence if ever someone were looking for it, to be like, oh yeah, so ultimately it's very much time for it. And I'm glad that conversations like this are happening so that people can live a new way of life that just is in alignment with these birthrights.
Wow. Wow. Do you have a personal example that you could share, that you'd be willing to share to the public? Obviously, this is going out to the world, quite literally.
Yeah.
Without, without violating any of your confidentialities or sensitivities, and I want to respect that.
Yeah. I have a recent personal example where this awareness was something that I was very conscious about. Like, I want to bring this in. It was a delicate conversation that I was anticipating, and I really was in this space of wanting to be with these words to guide me. And it was, I think, one of the most intentional ways that I've ever been with this, in preparation for a real life difficult situation. And so I remember asking myself questions like, which of my values can I connect to, even as I'm considering having this conversation with this person? Which values can I hold as I'm communicating to the individual? And so that was a real life example of how this awareness helped me, because again, I was able to take that true north and, okay, Alana, you have the skills, you have this know-how, actually use it right here. And after all was said and done, I remember feeling so relieved, so secure, because I knew I had been so thoughtful, and the leading up to and the crafting of that. And so it helped me be really conscious and very much like, okay, given everything that I know up until my journey right now, I absolutely did the best that I could in that scenario.
Wow, I can't help but be really proud of you. I just am. I love you dearly. You know that already.
Thank you. I love you as well. You know that.
Yeah, thank you. Wow. I'm going to give you the last word. What do you want to say on the topic?
I would say I'm just really wanting to reemphasize again how delighted I am that conversations like this are happening. I just remember, like I said, when I was late teens, early 20s, and I was feeling this. And so now I just so love that there are so many spaces like this. There's that are, I think of it as like a, falling into a cloud. This journey can often be like, oh, what's on the other side of releasing these things? And it's like falling into a cloud, having spaces like this that are really life affirming and nurturing. So I'm glad this is happening, and I'm really glad for whomever finds their way to this information. Um, Wonderful job, great job, and I'm glad to be here with all of you on that journey.
Beautiful. Well, with that, we'll open it up to questions or comments or people's other insights in terms of the energy, the excitement, the tenacity, the courage to go into this kind of conversation with yourself. And so thank you, Alana, for kicking us off here.
Thank you, my pleasure.
All right. Yay, Alana. Woohoo.
Hi.
So hearing it again today, what comes through for you? What would you like to add or emphasize?
I actually am noticing there's nothing else to add. Like I one of those things I think back of, like, there's nothing else I would have said differently or added to. So I'm actually very pleased with what came through, and maybe just extra highlighting that I really enjoyed the conversation.
Me too. Me too. Well, the one thing that occurs to me, and I guess we recorded that piece less than a week ago now, is that there is a sense for me that the core self is really the origin of peace. And I'm gonna even say world peace. It's the origin of unity. It's the origin, as we talked about in depth, of human rights, birthrights. And this is becoming more profoundly real for me, profoundly visible to me. That, I don't know, as a kid, I learned a song or heard a song, let me be part of world peace and let it begin with me, right? I mean, this is not a new concept.
Yeah.
Or the lyrics of the theme for 99 Days of Peace Through Unity that I just listened to. Beautiful lyrics from Kristen Hoffman is the artist, I believe, that this is attributed to. Part of the lyrics of that song is, all the sages and wise men of the ages were guiding us to look within ourselves. So again, not a new concept at all, but the significance of knowing and wanting to know and having a birthright to know your core self, as opposed to that, again, that external self that everybody else defines, is by definition the origin, the alpha of peace within myself. So I love that you're living it. I love that you're a model of it. I love that you speak so eloquently about it and that you bring it to your clients. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And as you were talking about this, like, this isn't a new concept. And yeah, going back for honestly centuries, this has been a thread coming through. Different scholars and through different cultures have been talking about this, that within self, actualization. And so I think one, it's cool to notice like, oh, people have been hip to this for a while now. I would say now it's more people join that conversation, more welcoming of that, and into I think a lot about just the profession of coaching in and of itself. I love how it's now joined the table when it comes to forms of care or support for individuals. And so it makes so much sense that a profession like coaching would come onto the scene with all of that brewing for so long, this idea of coming back home, tapping into the individual's inner guidance is how I say it to my clients in session one. So it just all makes sense that this is now where we are.
I'm glad you brought in the coaching piece of this too, and the professional coaching of the concept is that the client has their own best answer.
Yeah.
And up until the middle 90s, everybody was telling people what to do and advising and instructing. And again, we don't replace education, and don't want anybody coming down on me on that one. I love being an educator. But the whole concept of holding a space for someone to access what we're talking about here in that sense of core, whether they call it the core self or not, there's that inner vibration, inner knowingness. Some people call it intuition, and I believe that everybody has access to that. I mostly ignored that, by the way, for the first 35 years of my life. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, but I don't want to do that. I'm busy here, God, for God's sakes. Let me do my work.
Thanks for a little bit of a little more rough of a ride.
yeah, very rough ride until a point of exhaustion and discontent. So I'd like to welcome the audience in here. We have a select group of amazing human beings that I see up there with us today. And I have Jean Callahan that put something in the chat box. So Jean, I'm going to invite you in here first if I can, and have you just read that out loud so we have that from an audio standpoint.
Sure, absolutely. Let me see if I can turn my video on. Hello.
There you go.
I'm laying in my hammock. Yeah, so I love I love the example of how you used your knowing who you are, like what core values you want to bring into having a very difficult conversation. So my question was, how have you seen your clients use that knowing of their true core self?
In very similar ways. So I currently coach within a company and culture where it's very values led, I'd say. And so one, from that perspective, it's very, I would say maybe double emphasized to really encourage individuals to take values-based action is the term we use. And so clients, that's very much infused in the work that we do. Something I love that's happened many times over is, so the client and I will do this CoreSELF exercise. And before I even get to the point of asking them a question to from that or weaving that in, they will go and look at the page and look at the word. And so I would say in terms of how are they using it, there's this naturalness where many people, before I even incorporate it, they're looking at the words and being like, oh, this word here on my life purpose. They often pick the life purpose statement. So I would say it's similar to me where they're realizing, hold on, I have something that I can use to assist me here. And that's really cool because it's now anchored to something, anchored to their core rather than maybe something that's less intentional.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great question, Jean. Thank you. Any other questions or comments that anyone has that's listening in? I see Tanya and Andresa and Charles has joined us. Any comments of what you heard that was a reinforcement or a new perspective of how you've held sense of core self?
Hi, Peter. This is Tanya.
Yay, Tanya. Good to hear you.
Hi. So great to see that you were doing this today. Thank you for inviting us graduates.
You bet.
something that came up for me as you and Alana were speaking is I liked the question that Alana asked herself of what values can I think it was what values can I connect to as I'm considering whatever the issue is at hand. And what I like about that is because I have found with myself that when I'm in a predicament that feels really difficult, whether it's a decision I have to make or a connection with another person, one of the I don't know if it's what comes out of it usually is not whether you have anger about it or frustration. It's not the issue at hand that really turns out to be the problem that you remember after. It's your regret about how you feel about yourself and how you showed up to it. Like that overtakes the issue that was there from the beginning. And so reconnecting with your core selfie and what those values are, and remember to be living in that in your response, goes such a long way so that the issue kind of takes care of itself when you line up with that, and shows another person that they have permission to do that as well, and to keep that sacredness that you talked about in the beginning, your right to, your own sacred and unique self. And when you do that, it affirms that it's okay for someone else to do that too. And the issue works itself out, and you're not left with this puddle of remorse that you feel regretful about who you showed up to be. Because that pain, I think, is even bigger than the issue that the original issue brought.
Yeah. I think it's a very keen insight, first of all. In my case, it's not necessarily been a puddle, but more of a tsunami of after effect.
Yeah.
that continues to,
Yeah, that reminded me in our training, there was an orange that you talked about, and kind of piercing through the orange. That outer layer is that some of the damage we bring on ourselves to whatever the issue is. So it's like getting through that is the biggest part of that human condition for me.
Yeah. I probably have said in the last 10 or 15 years, I love who I have become, meaning I love who I've returned to be, in terms of my core self. I don't ever remember saying that in my first 40 years of life. And so that remorse, that regret, that recrimination, that wishing I could have done whatever it was better, over, give me a redo, God. And I think he actually does it, just later in life for me. So yes, and because I don't have that baggage then to carry afterwards, I'm not carrying remorse, very little of it anymore. I get to be even more myself. I've got time on a Sunday morning to do this. So, yeah. Alana, any thoughts on that observation from Tanya?
Yeah, it makes me think about that, like, hindsight is 2020 saying, where oftentimes I go back and I'm like, oh, that would have been maybe a better way to handle that. And so with the knowledge of the core self, I can maybe have less of those moments because I'm now being intentional while it's happening, and it's not like, blundering through and being like, oh, okay, I actually could have done it this way. So I would say that goes to my the practice piece we were talking about in the interview around actually bringing application to this awareness, and like, okay, this is a time where I can actually use that, remember that teaching, that whatever it might have been, use it right now. So that comes to mind.
Beautiful. Yeah, so it's a good idea to be yourself all the time.
Right.
Yeah, basically,
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, I can be myself here. And part of that too is just dropping the fear of, no, I have to get along. I have to placate. I have to play a part. I have to come up to what that other individual or that organization or that stage of life is expecting me because of who I am, right? From an external standpoint. So all of that goes away, and it's a lot of baggage for me. That has been a lot of baggage for me. And to drop all of that and be authentic all the time, regardless of whether I'm going through a drive-in, restaurant to get my sandwich for lunch, and just interacting with the people there. Thank you for showing up, for feeding me today. I mean, that's, this is about as authentic as I get. Or in talking about issues like this in front of the world, it's become easy, actually. It's become an easy process that I don't have to worry about a whole bunch of stuff I used to worry about as a younger man.
Mm.
So yeah.
Mm.
So Tanya, do you want to just have any final word on that, or what got reinforced for you?
Yeah, I think just the baggage. The baggage is so much weight, because it's even if it's the same amount of whatever the issue was that you had, it feels so much heavier. And when you lift that off, you can, you walk with your head up, and life just feels lighter. And I think that alignment that was discussed earlier, like when you're coming back to the true north, there's something about it, like there's like a bell that rings in your head that the feeling of it. It's hard to articulate, but when it just feels intrinsically right within you.
Yeah.
And to be able, the big thing in that was to be able to do it right then in the moment, to say, okay, this is that moment. This is that hard moment. Because sometimes in it, you feel like it's too hard right now. I just want to get past it, and then I can think about doing it right. But to say, no, this is it. You're showing up to it right now. How can you practice? Even if you still don't do it perfectly, what's one of those learnings I can bring to this moment, or one of my strengths from my CoreSELF that I can utilize right now? And how do I do that? What does it look like? And then do the reassessment of, how did that show up for me when I used that strength? Because I think Alana said earlier, sometimes it shows up differently. And the more that you could recognize it, the more you're able to practice it. And the more you practice it, and the more focus on it, the more it will expand within you and start taking over naturally as who you be, because you're undoing paradigms and practices and the track that you've run your whole life. And it's in the beginning, it feels like you're not making as much headway as you want. So you have to give it the time and the practice and the patience for a new track to be worn and the old one to become obsolete.
Great point. Yeah, because I had 37 years of practicing it the not so good way, trying to placate my surrounding exterior. And the more and more I practice this, it becomes easier and easier to be me. Like yeah. It's also, a side note here, side benefit, it's a heck of a lot healthier too.
Yeah.
We talk about carrying baggage, but there's a physical part of that energy that can wear a person down. And I'm sure people like that have been in such a negativity or a judgmental and so if they're filled with that, then that's all the only thing they have to give. And they're rageaholics, they're negative-aholics, and so on and so forth. This is so incredibly physically, emotionally, spiritually practical. It's crazy. So yeah, call on the inspiration of your inner Alana next time you're in a tough situation.
Thank you. Because you're talking about the physical, like it really does wear on an individual. I've had clients come to me and they've been in this practice of what I call like this mental gymnastics of trying to navigate, who am I supposed to be? What do people want from me? And they've literally come to me and been like, they've gone to a physician of some sort and been told there's nothing physical going on. I think you should maybe work with someone who could support you and the anxieties you're experiencing and things like that. And so I just find that catches their attention to be like, oh, okay, it's something else. I need to work on this internal, or I think I am feeling it's time to do something different. So it just strikes me that we have physicians who are supporting them and pointing them in another direction to look into.
Fabulous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to give an opportunity for a couple of other people to come in with a comment or a question. We have about 6 minutes remaining in our session today. And I'd like to welcome, is it Laithlan? Welcome, welcome. And Charles, I think you've come in as well. Any other questions, Andresia or Charles, that come to mind in terms of this topic of actually having the belief or getting in touch with the right, the birthright, the human right, to be audacious enough to know your core self? Charles?
Well, I'm happy to be back in the room with you and with Alana Brown, who shared with me a dazzling presentation that she uses for sharing CoreSELF with her new clients and with the world, including me. I'm grateful that Peter J. Redding, when I asked if he would share one presentation with World Unity Week, you blew us all our mind with 6 sessions. And the reason that it took me 30 minutes to get here is the system's trying to figure out how to provide for someone who's so generously, so positively, brilliantly offering a beautiful gift to humankind. Tanya, your question was beautiful about have no regrets. In a little book here, I shared a survey from a University of Chapel Hill professor about have no regrets. He interviewed hundreds of people about having no regrets. They were near the end of their life. You know, things like I would have spent more time with my family, taking care of my health, managed my money a lot more effectively, would have planned my career. I'm going to use this and say the number one answer today on top of these 8 would be I would have taken time to complete the CoreSELF process as a gift from Peter J. Redding of Coach for Life Institute as early in my life as possible, because it affected every other area of my life. So thank you all. Please do partake of the treasures in addition to the CoreSELF that are available at worldunityweek.org. It's the most phenomenal experience I've ever been blessed to have. Thank you, Peter. Thank you all for helping coach the world to our brilliance.
Amen. Hallelujah, Charles. And thank you for being on my planet. It's a better planet because of it.
Thank you, Charles. That was wonderful to hear. Thank you.
All right, we're down to about 3.5 minutes here on the official clock because World Unity Week wanted to have us be a 55-minute segment. Any other comments or questions from Andresia? I see somebody that's on iPhone, an audio, or Leitland. Okay. Then I will wrap it up and invite you to session number 2 tomorrow, which is going to be coming with an interview with one of my other students. Comes from the Middle East, actually is born in India. And Arvind is his name. We'll be talking to him about the progression of this concept of CoreSELF. Today is about how can we have people believe, get back in the modality of even having the thought that they have a core self that's been so far removed because of all the other programming and conditioning of life that I think every human being goes through, regardless of what country, continent, color, race, religious beliefs, etc. We're all conditioned in our soup, I call it, right? And so how can we connect them to the belief, to have a belief that there's still something inside of me that needs to be rediscovered? And we talk actually about the rediscovery piece tomorrow, specifically with Arvind. And I have been blessed beyond measure in my lifetime and in this whole process of getting these things ready to present to the world. This will be available to the public through Facebook, through YouTube, through World Unity Week. And I haven't met all the people that are behind all of this at World Unity Week or the 99 Days of Peace. But I want to thank them vicariously for all the energy they put into this. Quite literally their energy, the consciousness is probably a better word for it. When I take better care of myself, I am a better human citizen. And I have more compassion for my brothers and sisters, the other 7.5 billion of those that are connected to me in a ethereal manner. And I bring my peace, my sense of unity, my sense of vitality to know that that's available to every human being. So with that, I will say good night, goodbye, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you might be. And Alana, I'll allow you to say goodbye the way you like to say goodbye in the last half a minute here.
Yeah, thank you. Farewell. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the series. It'll be great.
Thank you, Alana. Thank you, everybody that came. Thank you for who you are in your part of the world. God bless. Namaste. Be safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.